My back had a weird problem. Every time I finished a workout, I'd look at it and realize it had almost no detail from behind. I had some width, but none of that thickness through the middle that makes a back actually look complete. So after trying almost every back exercise and progressing with them, I eventually found two movements that worked completely differently from each other. One built the width and strength I was missing. The other filled in the thickness and detail that made everything actually stand out. And when I started progressing both together, my back finally began to look different. The first movement was the one that eventually became the heaviest exercise in my back training: weighted pull-ups. The first time I added weight, I expected the same pull-up with a plate hanging underneath me. What I didn't expect was how different the movement would feel once that plate became 20, 30, or even 40 kilograms. Bodyweight pull-ups had always given me a good pump, but there was a point where doing more reps just meant doing longer sets. Adding weight gave me somewhere completely different to progress. And suddenly, my back wasn't just moving my body anymore. It was having to produce more force through the exact same pulling pattern every week. That was the difference. Instead of asking, "Did I feel my lats today?" I could ask something much simpler. Am I stronger than I was last month? And when the answer kept becoming yes, my back started reflecting it. And even normal bodyweight pull-ups began feeling ridiculously light. But there was still a problem, because no matter how strong I got at weighted pull-ups, there was one part of my back they weren't completely filling in. That part was the rhomboids responsible for the thickness of the back. And the reason was obvious once I looked at how I was training. Almost all of my hard pulling was happening in one direction: vertical. So instead of adding another pull-up grip, I added a movement that attacked the back from almost the opposite direction: bodyweight rows. The problem is that most people make rows way too easy. They put the bar high, fly through 15 or 20 reps, get a small pump, then move on. I lowered the bar until my body was much closer to horizontal, pulled my chest toward the bar, squeezed at the top, then controlled the way down. Suddenly, a movement most people treat like a warm-up became one of the harder parts of the workout. And now the two exercises had completely different jobs. Weighted pull-ups gave me the heavy vertical pull I could keep loading. Rows gave me the horizontal pull, where I could focus more on pulling the elbows behind me and getting the middle of the back involved. But the most important thing wasn't even which two exercises I chose. It was that both could keep getting harder, because eventually, that becomes the entire game. But how do you know you got stronger? This gets confusing once the weight starts going up. Let's say last week you did plus 20 kilos for 8 reps. This week you did plus 25 for 3. Which performance was actually stronger? Most people just see the heavier plate and assume the second one wins. But when your weights and reps keep changing, it becomes harder to tell whether your actual strength is improving or whether you're just moving numbers around. That exact problem is why I made my free weighted calisthenics calculator. You put in your body weight, the added weight, and how many reps you did, and it estimates your weighted pull-up strength so you can compare different sessions much more easily. I'll put it below for free, and it becomes more useful the stronger you get, because eventually progress stops looking dramatic. You're not adding 10 kilos every few weeks anymore. Sometimes progress is 1 extra rep or kilogram. Sometimes it's the exact same load, but the reps moved faster and looked cleaner. Those changes seem tiny inside one workout, but not on the long run. The guy struggling with plus 10 kilos slowly becomes the guy warming up with it. Now the calculator can tell you whether the estimated strength increased. However, it can't tell you whether you shortened the range to make it happen. If your first rep starts from a full hang and your 5th rep starts halfway down, those aren't 5 reps of the same exercise. If adding weight turns your controlled pull-up into a huge kick toward the bar, you didn't really progress the movement. That doesn't mean every heavy rep has to look perfect. The last rep will slow down, but the basic standard has to stay. That's why I'd rather repeat the same weight for another week and actually own it than rush to a heavier plate my back can't control yet. And once you train this way for long enough, you almost stop noticing how much stronger you're becoming. Then the weight you once watched someone else pull and thought looked ridiculous is hanging from your own belt. That's when the whole idea starts making sense. What finally changed my back was watching the same 2 exercises become harder and harder with time. The pull-up that started with just my body weight eventually had serious weight hanging underneath me. And the row I once treated like an easy accessory eventually became hard enough that every clean rep mattered. That was the difference. One vertical pull kept getting heavier. One horizontal pull kept getting harder. Weighted pull-ups forced my back to handle more and more load, while bodyweight rows filled in the horizontal pulling my pull-ups couldn't completely cover. And because I stopped changing exercises every time progress slowed down, I finally stayed with them long enough for the progression to matter. That's also why constantly changing exercises can be such a trap. Every time you switch movements, you almost reset the process. You need time to learn the movement and eventually reach the point where the exercise is actually challenging enough to force a bigger adaptation. The exercises that changed my back weren't special because I discovered them. They became special because I kept getting better at them. Your back doesn't care how many exercises you did. It cares whether the demands are actually increasing. So if your back workouts feel hard but your back still looks almost the same, don't immediately add something new. Pick a vertical pull and make it brutally strong. Pick a horizontal pull and make it brutally hard. Keep the reps honest. And stay with them long enough that the weights that once felt heavy eventually become normal. If you want to know where your weighted pull-up strength actually sits right now, use the free calculator below. Just enter your body weight, the added weight, and your reps, and it'll estimate your strength so you can compare different sessions and see if you're actually progressing. It also makes it much easier to spot small improvements when the numbers stop moving fast, because one extra rep or a small jump in weight can still mean your strength is moving in the right direction. And then watch the video on screen, because I break down the 7 levels of pull-up strength from beginner all the way to the numbers almost nobody reaches.